Pete Hegseth risked endangering American troops. That is the conclusion from one of the most damning reports from the Pentagon Inspector General in history. And this report stems from an extensive investigation into the Defense Secretary's decision to share sensitive war plans on a group chat that actually turned out to include a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg. Now, Hegseth revealed in that chat the exact times the fighter jets would launch, where they were going to fly, when they would hit their targets, so what the targets were, obviously, meaning that the American pilots of those jets were at risk. It is a rare conclusion about a sitting Secretary of Defense. And news of this report comes as questions are mounting about Hegseth's control at the Pentagon and his competence after a second strike on an alleged drug boat. That strike killing 2 survivors who were reportedly clinging to the wreckage. Now, tonight, Trump was forced to say that he would release the video of that second strike.
You released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem.
Now, of course, Trump has talked similarly about the Epstein files, his taxes, his MRI, but this time might be different. Maybe Trump thinks it will help Hegseth. It's unclear, but this is the video that Hegseth now claims that he himself did not watch live. He says now he didn't see it. Too many other things to do. That, of course, was after he had boasted originally on Fox News that he had watched the entire thing live back in September. Now, the Washington Post reports that if the video of the blast that killed the 2 survivors on September 2nd were made public, people would be horrified, said one person who watched the actual live feed. But it comes as more people, including staunch conservatives, are suggesting Hegseth could be guilty of an actual war crime. Listen to his former Fox News colleague, Andrew Napolitano, who now works at the Trump-friendly station Newsmax.
Everybody along the line who did it, from the Secretary of Defense to the Admiral to the people who actually pulled the trigger, should be prosecuted for a war crime for killing these 2 people.
Right, that's not mincing words. It wasn't mincing words at all. And then there's the brutal headline from conservative columnist George Will, who wrote, "A sickening moral slum of an administration." And then went on to write, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth seems to be a war criminal without a war. An interesting admission. Okay? And then listen to Republican Senator Rand Paul, who said Hegseth is either lying or incompetent yesterday.
There is a question of the legality of bombing people who are shipwrecked or incapacitated. I frankly think it's absolutely illegal.
This may be why the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, who voted to confirm Hegseth, is now refusing to say whether or not he has confidence in Trump's defense secretary.
Do you have confidence in him? Would you say that? Can you say if you do? Thanks for your time.
And while all these questions swirl around Hegseth, who, of course, calls himself the Secretary of War, he is refusing to sit down for tough interviews, turning down multiple interview requests from CNN and others. But an interview was released last night, which appears to have been taped before news of this whole second strike imbroglio. And in that conversation, which was with Stephen Miller's wife, Katie, Hegseth talks about whether he'd let Stephen Miller babysit his kids and what he eats for breakfast.
Who would you trust to babysit your kids?
Who would I trust to babysit my kids?
This can only be another member of the cabinet?
Only another member of the cabinet? Oh, I mean, not your husband or Marco.
Who would you trust to do your grocery shopping?
Oh, Bobby Kennedy. I have the same breakfast every morning. Bacon, eggs, and sausage. And something with meat at lunch, and then whatever she makes for dinner. Meatballs are really, really good. Homemade meatballs with a little sausage in there.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen Holmes is out front live outside the White House. Kristen, is the president as confident about Hegseth in private as he claims to be in public right now?
Well, I think you need to look at that White House statement, because the last line of the statement from Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said the president stands by Pete Hegseth, and that was a calculated decision. Think about all of the stories that we have put forward saying that there is doubt in certain members of the cabinet, where we have not gotten that kind of a statement back, in which they say this is fake news, but then kind of let it go. They have made a calculated decision. In this instance, remember, this was just in response to this Inspector General report, that they are going to stand by Hegseth. And there is some thought that goes into that. The reason is they expended so much political and personal capital, so many of them, to get him across the finish line. It's going to take a lot for them to try and get rid of him, or to get rid of him. But one thing to keep a note here, you mentioned this, when it comes to Venezuela, when it comes to this second strike, we are hearing louder and louder calls from Republicans as well as Democrats. And tomorrow we are going to see the Admiral Bradley, who essentially kind of seems as though he has been somewhat of a scapegoat. We'll see if that is how it plays out on the Hill, talking to senators. And there's going to be a lot of questions about what Hegseth's role was. And then you're going to hear from those senators again. And one thing is clear, if the calls get louder and louder, and if they get too loud, it is likely the White House will start to at least have to have these conversations with these senators, not just standing by Hegseth. So we'll see how this all plays out once you actually have that admiral talking to those senators. But again, we've been down this road before, Aaron. They expended a lot of capital on Pete Hegseth. They're going to keep him. As of now, they're saying they're standing by him.
All right, Kristen, thank you very much. And out front now, Democratic Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan. She's on the Armed Services and Intel committees. A lot to ask you about this evening, Congresswoman. This Inspector General report, though, a pretty incredible thing to have come out, right? To say that a Secretary of Defense had risked endangering the lives of American troops. It comes out as Hegseth is also now being criticized by some of those Republicans and conservatives that I was just sharing a few moments ago. Do you think that Hegseth at this moment is actually in danger of losing his job as Defense Secretary?
First of all, thank you for having me. And the answer to your question is I sure hope he's in danger, because from the moment he was confirmed, I believe that he was incompetent and a liar all combined. And now I hope that people are starting to see through all of the things that are unfolding, whether it's Venezuela or the results of the IG's report, just how hazardous this particular Secretary of Defense is, and how much he puts the men and women in uniform in harm's way, and how much as a consequence our national security is in danger.
So the New York Times just a few moments ago reported, and we were just going through this, that Hegseth had actually approved contingency plans if there were survivors of the strikes, which said, the contingency plan said, that the military would attempt to aid anyone who appeared helpless or out of the fight. So then you would say, well, then why did the second strike come in when two people are clinging for their lives to the side of the boat? Well, the contingency plan says the military would try to kill survivors if they took what was deemed a hostile act. And apparently officials are saying that one of the survivors, or telling the Times, that one of the survivors radioed for help. And then Admiral Bradley ordered the second strike. As I've laid that out to you in terms of a timeline, in terms of the contingency plan itself, would that in any way possibly exonerate Hegseth?
I don't believe so, and one of the things I was interested in and is new information to me is that you mentioned that President Trump is able and willing to release the second tape. I'm glad that that is the case and look forward to that. But I also look forward to the audio as well being released to understand, and the video within the room itself, to understand who was there, who was listening, what was being said. All of those things, including the details that you just laid out, need to come to light, need to be part of the oversight process. Whether they are done by the Intelligence Committee or the Armed Services Committee, the American public deserves the oversight that the Congress would allow us to provide.
So I want to ask you also about our K-File. CNN's K-File unearthed video of Pete Hegseth from 2016. And he said something specific about U.S. soldiers' conduct and following lawful orders from the chain of command. Here's what he said.
I do think there have to be consequences for abject war crimes. If you're doing something that is just completely unlawful and ruthless, then there is a consequence for that. That's why the military said it won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief. There's a standard, there's an ethos, there's a belief that we are above what so many things that our enemies or others would do.
That, of course, is what you, and obviously, Congresswoman, you are an Air Force veteran, you and other Democratic colleagues also who served in the armed forces said in the video you put out, which Hegseth called seditious. Here is that clip.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
And there you are at the end, Congresswoman. So what's your reaction when you hear this, when you hear Hegseth, at the time the commander-in-chief that he was referring to, saying the military won't follow unlawful orders from their commander-in-chief, was Barack Obama?
Sure. I've seen both of the videos that you just showed, and I've also seen a really good mashup of the two videos of the 5 of us, actually 6 of us, and then the secretary. And you wouldn't know that we were saying anything different than one another, or we're on opposite sides or at different parties. We are all singing from the same hymnal, so to speak. And so what I'm struggling with is, how did Secretary Hegseth go from saying that to also then the enormous disdain that he has for the JAG, the group of people in the military who make sure to advise on our laws and make sure to tell us what is appropriate and inappropriate to do. He's gotten rid of the JAG. He's dismissed them out of the room in many occasions. And this is another proof point of ours that says that he does not deserve the job that he has, and we need to make sure that he is removed from office.
Congresswoman, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.